You're not going to believe what just happened. Lil Mendeecees, the rising rap star everyone's been talking about, has just made headlines for all the wrong reasons. Shocking footage has surfaced showing Lil M in a heated confrontation with his father, music producer Mendeecees Harris. What started as a tense argument quickly spiraled out of control, and before anyone could react, Lil M's hand came flying across his father's face. Yes, you read that right. A full-on public slap that's now going viral across the internet. Fans are in disbelief, scrambling for answers. Was this a moment of raw, unfiltered rage, or is something much deeper brewing between this father and son? Witnesses say the tension had been mounting for weeks, but nobody could have predicted it would erupt so suddenly, and in front of cameras, no less. Now, the leaked footage is everywhere, and social media is buzzing with speculation. What drove Lil Mendeecees to lose control in such a dramatic way? Could it be the crushing pressure of fame, years of unresolved family issues, or something even darker we've yet to uncover? Stay tuned, because we're about to unravel the truth behind this shocking family drama. It all began with an argument that seemed no different from their usual spats, the kind that might end with some grumbling and a few slammed doors. But this time was different. Lil Mendeecees had been sitting on frustration for weeks, maybe even months, and it was clear the tension had finally reached a boiling point. The small disagreements, the passive-aggressive comments, and the little jabs exchanged behind closed doors were now spilling into the open, and the cameras were rolling. The footage shows Lil Mendeecees and Mendeecees Harris inside a luxury SUV parked outside a studio. The air inside the car looked heavy, thick with unresolved issues. Mendeecees was behind the wheel, gripping it tightly, his knuckles almost white. Beside him, Lil M sat rigid, his jaw clenched and his hands balled into fists. From the very beginning, it was clear this was not going to end well. "You always think you know what's best for me," Lil M muttered, his voice low but steady. "But you don't. You never have." Mendeecees sighed, a heavy, drawn-out breath that seemed to carry the weight of every mistake he'd ever made. "You think this is easy?" he replied, his voice calm but tinged with exhaustion. "Being a father, especially after everything we've been through, you think that's a walk in the park?" Lil M turned his gaze out the window, watching the world pass by as if searching for an escape. "You talk about being a father," he said, his voice growing sharper. "But where were you when I needed you? Where were you when I was figuring everything out on my own, trying to be my own man, because you weren't there?" The tension inside the car was palpable, like a storm brewing just beneath the surface. Mendeecees gripped the steering wheel even tighter. His fingers trembled slightly. "I was doing what I had to do," he said finally, his voice softer now. "I was handling business, making sure you had what you needed. Maybe I wasn't there the way I should have been, but don't act like I didn't care." Lil Mendeecees turned to face his father, his eyes burning with years of pent-up frustration. "You always say that," he muttered. "But words don't mean anything if your actions don't match. You expect me to just forget everything? Act like everything's cool?" Mendeecees inhaled deeply, running a hand over his face. "No," he admitted. "I don't expect you to forget. But damn it, can't we at least try to move forward?" For a moment, there was silence, just the hum of the car's engine and the faint sounds of the city outside. It wasn't a peaceful silence, though. It was the kind that comes right before something breaks. Lil Mendeecees let out a bitter laugh, shaking his head. "Move forward," he repeated. "How am I supposed to do that when you don't even take responsibility? When you sit here acting like I should just accept whatever you say and keep it moving?" Mendeecees turned his head slightly, his patience clearly wearing thin. "You don't think I've taken responsibility?" he asked, his voice tight with frustration. "You think I haven't tried to fix things?" Lil Mendeecees stared at him, his eyes dark and full of resentment. "You think just because you've done better lately it erases everything from before? It doesn't. I'm still dealing with that." He stopped short, swallowing hard, as if saying the words out loud would make them hurt even more. The conversation had gone from tense to volatile in a matter of minutes. Both men were speaking over each other now, their voices rising with every exchange. It was a clash of two stubborn personalities, each refusing to back down. Lil Mendeecees felt like every word out of his father's mouth was a dismissal of his pain, a refusal to acknowledge the years he'd spent feeling abandoned. And Mendeecees felt like his son was unwilling to see the sacrifices he'd made, the efforts he'd put in to try and make things right. "You don't get it," Mendeecees muttered, shaking his head. "No, you don't get it." Lil Mendeecees snapped back, his voice now a full-blown shout. And then it happened. The moment that would leave everyone in shock. Menez rolled his eyes, a dismissive gesture that sent Lil Mendeecees over the edge. Without thinking, without hesitating, Lil Mendeecees' hand shot out, connecting with his father's face in a sharp slap that echoed inside the car. For a split second, the world seemed to freeze. Menez's head snapped to the side, his cheek burning from the impact. His eyes widened, not from pain, but from pure, unfiltered shock. He had never expected this, not from his own son. The air in the car turned icy, the silence now suffocating. Lil Mendeecees sat back, his chest rising and falling with deep, uneven breaths. His hands trembled as he realized what he'd done. He had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Menez slowly turned back, his jaw tightening. His breathing was controlled, but his eyes blazed with something unrecognizable, hurt, betrayal, and something darker. "What the hell did you just do?" Menez asked, his voice dangerously low. Lil Mendeecees swallowed hard, his heart pounding. He wanted to say something, to explain, but no words came out. He had acted on instinct, on raw emotion. And now, he wasn't sure what would happen next. The moment stretched on, agonizingly long. Menez's cheeks still burned, but the pain wasn't just physical. It was something deeper, something far worse, that cut through his pride and his authority as a father. This was a wound that would take more than an apology to heal. Lil Mendeecees could barely breathe as the weight of what he had done settled in. He had struck his own father, the man he had so many issues with, yes, but also the man who had tried, however imperfectly, to make things right. The man who had been his anchor, his guide, even when they couldn't see eye to eye. And now the entire world would know. As the minutes passed, the gravity of the situation became clearer. Lil Mendeecees' phone buzzed, and his heart sank when he saw the notification. Someone had recorded the altercation. The video of that slap, of their heated exchange, was already circulating online. Social media was exploding with comments, speculation, and judgment. Fans were taking sides, questioning the dynamics of their relationship, and trying to piece together what had led to this moment. Lil Mendeecees looked at his father, searching for some sign of what to do next, but Mendeecees' expression was unreadable, a mask of controlled fury and deep disappointment. The damage was done, and they both knew it. This wasn't just a family argument. This was a public scandal that would define their relationship for years to come. What would happen next? Could they ever find a way back from this? The answers were unclear, but one thing was certain: nothing would ever be the same again. So, what do you all think about this explosive father-son fallout? Can Mendeecees and Lil Mendeecees ever patch things up, or is the damage too deep? Should Mendeecees take a firm stand, or is there room for forgiveness? Drop your thoughts below and join the conversation. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications because, trust me, there's more to this story, and we'll be the first to spill all the tea. You won't believe this, but Yandy Smith just put Rashida on blast in a way no one saw coming. The internet is on fire after Yandy confronted Rashida over Kirk Frost's shocking role in sabotaging Mendeecees' career. And trust me, this just changed everything. For years, fans thought they knew the real story behind Mendeecees' struggles in the industry, but it turns out there's a whole other side to this messy drama, and it all leads back to Kirk. And now, Yandy has finally reached her breaking point. She's calling out Rashida, demanding answers, and what she just exposed is sending shockwaves through the entire love and hip-hop world. How deep does this betrayal go? How long has Kirk been secretly blocking Mendeecees from success? And why did Rashida stay silent about it? Oh, and just wait until you hear what Kirk did behind the scenes to keep Mendeecees from getting back on his feet. This story is getting crazier by the minute. But hold up, because here's where things take a wild turn. Yandy wasn't about to let this slide. Not this time. Not after everything Mendeecees had been through. And especially not after she found out that Kirk Frost, of all people, might be the reason her man's career never took off the way it should have. It all started at a high-profile industry event in Atlanta. The air was thick with tension, the kind you could cut with a knife. Yandy had heard whispers, rumors that had been circulating for years. But this time, she had receipts. And when she spotted Rashida, she knew this was her chance to get some answers. But let's rewind for a second, because this story is about to take a turn nobody saw coming. For years, Mendeecees Harris was grinding in the industry, trying to make a name for himself. He had talent, connections, and a strong hustle. But something kept holding him back. Every time he got close to a major deal, something went wrong. A contract would suddenly fall through. A promised collab would mysteriously disappear. And every single time, the doors that should have been wide open for him somehow slammed shut, right in his face. At first, Yandy thought it was just bad luck. The industry can be ruthless after all. But then she started noticing a pattern, a disturbing one. The same names kept popping up. And at the center of it all, Kirk Frost. Now, Kirk isn't exactly known for being the most honest man in the game. If you've watched Love and Hip Hop, you already know his history is messy. But this was on a whole other level. Yandy had reason to believe that Kirk had been pulling strings behind the scenes to block Mendeecees from ever making it big. And if Kirk was involved, then what did that mean for Rashida? Did she know? Was she part of it? Or was she just as in the dark as everyone else? That's exactly what Yandy wanted to find out when she walked up to Rashida at that event. The room was buzzing, people were mingling, and the cameras were rolling. Yandy, looking fierce as ever, locked eyes with Rashida. She didn't waste a second. "Rashida, we need to talk." Rashida raised an eyebrow, sipping her drink like she didn't have a care in the world. "About what?" And that's when Yandy dropped the bomb. "About your husband." The second those words left her mouth, the energy in the room shifted. Conversations around them quieted down. People started glancing over, sensing that something big was about to go down. Rashida scoffed, flipping her hair back. "What about him?" Yandy took a deep breath, steadying herself before she spoke. "I know what he did to Mendeecees, and I want to know if you weren't on it." Just like that, the gloves were off. Rashida's smile faltered, for just a split second, just long enough for Yandy to notice. But then she laughed. "Girl, what are you even talking about?" Yandy wasn't backing down. "I'm talking about how every time Mendeecees had a deal lined up, something went wrong. And every time it traced back to Kirk. He's been playing puppet master, making sure my man never got the opportunities he deserved. Now, I need to know, were you a part of this? Or were you just sitting back and letting it happen?" Rashida's eyes narrowed. "You need to watch what you're saying, Yandy." But Yandy wasn't fazed. "No, you need to start talking. Because the receipts I got, they don't lie." At this point, a small crowd had gathered. People were whispering. Phones were coming out because everybody knew when drama popped off, you better catch it on camera. And just when it seemed like things couldn't get any crazier, Rashida's smile faltered for a split second, just long enough for Yandy to notice. But then she laughed. "Girl, what are you even talking about?" Yandy wasn't backing down. "I'm talking about how every time Ems had a deal lined up, something went wrong. And every time, it traced back to Kirk. He's been playing puppet master, making sure my man and any of these got the opportunities he deserved. Now, I need to know, were you part of this, or were you just sitting back and letting it happen?" Rashida's eyes narrowed. "You need to watch what you're saying, Mandy." But Yandy wasn't fazed. "No, you need to start talking because the receipts I got, they don't lie." At this point, a small crowd had gathered. People were whispering, phones were coming out because everybody knew when drama popped off, you better catch it on camera. And just when it seemed like things couldn't get any crazier, the crowd around them was growing. Phones were out, whispers spreading like wildfire. People knew this was about to be a love and hip-hop level confrontation, and nobody was missing it. But Rashida wasn't about to let Yandy control the narrative. "So you're telling me that Kirk, my husband, had something to do with Em's career? Why would he even care?" Yandy took a step closer, lowering her voice just enough to make sure the tension stayed thick. Because Mendeecees was about to sign a deal that would put him on a whole new level. A deal that, oh, surprise, surprise, Kirk's little connections managed to block. And you're gonna sit here and act like you don't know anything about that? Rashida's lips pressed into a thin line. She hated being put on the spot, and Yandy knew it. But the thing was, Rashida wasn't stupid. She knew how the industry worked, and most importantly, she knew her husband. And this sounded exactly like something Kirk would do. But admitting that in front of a crowd? Not going to happen. "Yandy, I think you've been misinformed," Rashida said, her tone calm, calculated. "If you have receipts, show them. Otherwise, don't come at me like this." Yandy smirked. "Oh, you want receipts?" She pulled out her phone. "Let's start with this." She tapped the screen, and suddenly, the whole vibe of the room changed. Because the second Rashida saw what was on that phone, her whole expression shifted. It was an email thread, clear as day, linking Kirk to a series of blocked deals. Deals that were supposed to be Mendeecees' big break. And the worst part? There was a message from Kirk himself, telling a high-profile industry executive that Mendeecees wasn't the right fit for a certain label. Now, anyone who knew how the game worked knew what that meant. That wasn't just a suggestion. That was a power move. A clear signal to blackball Mendeecees from the industry. And Rashida? She couldn't deny what was